Due to the graphic nature of this video, viewer discretion is advised. We've all heard the phrase, disappeared without a trace. And while the circumstances may seem to indicate that a person can disappear without leaving a trace behind, we also know that somebody saw something, and someone knows what happened in those final moments before said person seemingly disappears into thin air. In the case of missing teenager Hang Lee, she was 17 at the time of her abduction. January 12th, 1993 was the last time she was seen alive. Let's look into this case further to see if we can bring closure to her mysterious disappearance. Also, one of St. Paul, Minnesota's oldest missing persons cases. Do you or someone you know have information about what happened to Hang Lee? January 12th, 1993, St. Paul, Minnesota, approximately 6 p.m. Hang Lee was at home with her family. She was, by all accounts, a quiet and shy girl who loved to read and had a dream to attend the University of Minnesota and become a writer. With her at her home was her friend Kia Lee, no relation. Kia was known by the name Nikki to those who knew her well. Between the hours of 6 and 7 p.m., Nikki and Hang Lee left the home, and as they were leaving, Hang turned to her 15-year-old brother Kua, and as he said to police later, with a deep look of concern on her face, she told him, quote, "Kua, if I don't come back, come look for me. I don't trust Kia," unquote. And with that, the door closed behind the two girls. Miss Lee was never seen alive again by her family. Lee's parents, refugees from Laos, filed a missing persons report a day or two later with the St. Paul Police Department when their daughter failed to return home. Police found out from the family that Hang had left with her friend Nikki in order to be interviewed for a possible new job with Nikki's employer. Her boss would ultimately become the one and only suspect in the case of Hang's disappearance. We're just getting a little ahead of the story here. Police questioned Nikki, and she had changed her story multiple times. First telling authorities that she left with a group of men, before finally settling with the story about the interview with her boss, who owned a painting and decorating company. Nikki Lee's employer, Mark Stephen Wallace, had asked Nikki if she had any friends that needed a job. Nikki told police that she immediately thought of her friend Hang, but that the interesting thing about the question was, according to Nikki, that her boss didn't have enough work for her to do, so why would he ask her to find a friend who needed a job? January 12th, 1993 was a very snowy and cold day in Minnesota, as all January days are, and before the day was over, 6 inches of snow would blanket the city of St. Paul. When Hang Lee and her friend Nikki left Hang's home, they were picked up by Mark Stephen Wallace, Nikki's employer. He picked them up in a white pickup truck. He originally told the girls that he wanted to go to a local casino. After the two girls objected because of the weather, the fact that they had school the next day, Wallace said that he would drive around and conduct the job interview. After the interview was over, Wallace said he would take the girls home. For whatever strange reason, Wallace had decided to switch up vehicles. The three individuals got out of the white truck and then got into a 1988 silver or tan colored Chevy Cavalier. Nikki told investigators that Wallace told her that he was going to drop her off first at her home in the Frogtown neighborhood of St. Paul, and then drop off her friend Hang because she lived closer to his home in Maplewood, Minnesota. For reasons known only to Wallace, he didn't drop off Nikki at her home, but instead at a nearby gas station. Before getting out, he told the girls he was going to drop Hang off at Wong's Cafe in St. Paul, where Hang was working at the time, because he didn't feel like driving her to her home. Nikki got out of the car, and as she looked back, she saw her friend getting into the front seat of the Chevy Cavalier. This would be the last time that she would see her friend alive. During the investigation into Hang Lee's disappearance, there has been only one suspect that police have focused their efforts on: Mark Stephen Wallace, aged 58 as of this video. He's a career criminal with an extensive record, which you can see here. And it includes everything from rape, domestic assault, kidnapping, down to theft and using stolen credit cards. In 1987, while out on bail for 2 rape charges, he staged his fake suicide in St. Paul the day before he was to be in court, and then fled to Phoenix, Arizona, eventually settling in Eugene, Oregon. According to the newspaper clipping which you see here, this is what happened. This comes from the Register Guard, the local newspaper in Eugene, Oregon. Midwest rape case leads here. A 25-year-old rape suspect who left his shoes and wallet on a St. Paul, Minnesota bridge in March, along with a suicide note, surfaced alive and well this week at a Eugene apartment complex. Eugene police arrested Mark Stephen Wallace on Wednesday at 450 West 8th Avenue, where he worked as an assistant apartment manager. The Eugene police detective said, "Local police received a tip from Minnesota police that Wallace was in the area," Eugene detective J.T. Parr said. Parr said he drove by the apartment complex a few times, and at one point saw Wallace carrying trash outside and recognized him from a photograph sent from Minnesota. Officers arrested Wallace without incident. During arraignment in Lane County District Court on Thursday, he waived his right to fight extradition, clearing the way for his return soon to Minnesota. A warrant issued in Washington County, Minnesota, charges Wallace with 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, rape, kidnap, and third-degree assault. He's accused of kidnapping a 16-year-old girl in St. Paul, Minnesota on March 31st, 1987, and raping her at his apartment in nearby Cottage Grove. Detective Randy Stricker of the Cottage Grove Police Department in Minnesota said Friday. Wallace also is wanted in connection with another rape on April 9th, 1987 in St. Paul, said Lieutenant Russell Bovee of the St. Paul Police Department. Wallace was free on bail when he disappeared March 20th, a day before his trial was to begin on the rape of the 16-year-old girl, Bovee said. Police found a suicide note, a pair of shoes, and a wallet containing Wallace's identification on the high bridge over the Mississippi River, which connects 2 sections of St. Paul, Bovee said. Quote, "He put some shoes and a note on the bridge, and it said he was going to end it all. But he didn't fool anybody. He was due in court the next morning, and to suddenly find that he committed suicide, there was no evidence that anyone had jumped in," Bovee said. On April 4th, Washington County Judge issued a warrant for Wallace's arrest. Minnesota police developed information that Wallace traveled to Phoenix, Arizona, and later to Eugene. I don't know why Eugene, Oregon, other than, and then it goes from there. I wasn't able to find the rest of the article. Now, after seeing his criminal record, you can see why police would want to question him, considering that he was the last person to see Hang Lee alive. Understandably, from his point of view, he refused to answer many of the questions police posed to him, and immediately refused to cooperate, and he hired an attorney. In another strange twist, Kia Nikki Lee, Hang's friend, also stopped cooperating with authorities and hired an attorney. Now, what does she have to hide that police don't know about? So as of this day, there have been no other suspects, arrests, or convictions in regards to Miss Lee's disappearance. There has been only one promising lead in the case, which wound up not leading to much after all. Wallace grew up in Maplewood, Minnesota on Finesse Street, and had lived in the home on and off for most of his life. After inheriting the home after his mother's death, the home went into foreclosure. After that took place, authorities received permission from the real estate agent and the mortgage company to search the property. Cadaver dogs were brought in to search the property for human remains on 2 separate occasions. The first time, 3 sets of different dogs focused on the northeast corner wall of the garage. After this, the warrant for the second search was obtained. A drill was used to make holes in the concrete floor of the garage. Again, cadaver dogs searched the property. Most of the dogs had failed to indicate the presence of human remains, and nothing was taken from Wallace's former home. So the case has gone back to square one for investigators. Hang Lee has been missing for 27 years now, and no more progress has been made in her case, much to the frustration of St. Paul and Ramsey County law enforcement, who have been diligently searching for her for all these years. On April 7th, 2017, the Lee family held a spirit release ceremony to put their daughter's spirit to rest, and also to raise awareness of the case to the public, in the hopes that someone would come forward with new information. As of May 2020, no arrests have been made or remains found. Nikki Lee is still uncooperative with police. Mark Stephen Wallace is currently in prison for kidnapping and will be out on parole in 2021. If you or someone you know anything about this case, no matter how trivial it may seem, please contact the numbers that you see on your screen here. Until next time.